Daenerys Targaryen executing 163 slave masters in Meereen. Was this justice or vengeance? How do her actions in Meereen foreshadow what's to come when she finally arrives in Westeros? That and more, including a tangent about Tyrion, but before we get into things, the business. Consider supporting this channel on Patreon or becoming a channel member. The lowest tier for both options starts at $1. You get early access to videos, sneak peeks, and exclusive content. Other tiers have other perks as well, such as your name at the end of every video. So consider lending your support. Thank you to those that do, and thank you to everyone that watches these videos, subscribes to the channel, and turns on notifications. With all of that said, let's get into it. So I've decided to title this video, The 163 for Dummies. Now that might seem harsh, that might seem inflammatory, but the topic of the 163 executed masters of Meereen is a conversation that concerns Daenerys Targaryen. And when you talk about Daenerys Targaryen, when you level the mildest of criticism at the character, that angers a certain subset of the fandom. Dany has her supporters, and they don't take it kindly when you're not merely praising the character. If you're going to criticize her, it has to be like a job interview, right? I think Daenerys Targaryen's worst trait is that she works too hard. She cares too much. That's her bad side. I enjoy the character of Daenerys Targaryen very much. I most certainly do not hate her, but I'm not going to take it easy when I criticize her. I don't take it easy for any character in this story. Go see my video on Quentin Martell, which is over an hour long, where I call him a failure, an oathbreaker, and a bit of a dummy. Daenerys has decided to take part in some serious worldwide political matters, and her age and inexperience is no real excuse for when she makes mistakes, at least not for me. Because hundreds of people are dying due to direct decisions that Daenerys has made. Oh, she's young, only goes so far, and it's not going to bring the dead back. Things will get better in the future. Well, people are dead now. How about that? Have other characters committed dark and sometimes terrible deeds? They sure have, and we will talk about them in the future. For now, we're talking about one Daenerys Targaryen. Which brings us back to the 163 of Meereen. And I know, but they're slavers. They deserve to die. Are you a slave apologist? Are you pro-slavery? I've heard all the usual whiny arguments before. That tactic is not going to work here. There are those of us in this fandom that can trace our lineage back to actual real-world slavery. Meanwhile, Daenerys Targaryen, she's a fictional character. She's not a real person. So to call a real person pro-slavery in defense of a fictional character, it's very unintelligent. But that's why this video exists. This is the 163 for Dummies, because some of you are not smart, and I mean that in the most disrespectful way possible. To explain what happened in Meereen, we first have to go back to Astapor. Daenerys arrived in Slaver's Bay in Astapor for the purpose of buying slaves. I know her current campaign is to end slavery, but she came to Slaver's Bay with the intent of buying slaves. That should not be overlooked. Dany heard about the flesh markets of Slaver's Bay, and she feared them because she heard how terrible they are, but she still came to buy slaves anyway. Ser Jorah convinced her to do so. Regardless, she ends up freeing the Unsullied, freeing all the slaves of Astapor and Yunkai before marching to Meereen, the last slave city in Slaver's Bay. But Meereen has heard of Daenerys' approach, and in response, they gathered 163 enslaved children for a terrible purpose. They had these children nailed to mile markers leading to the city of Meereen. Not only were these children nailed to these posts while alive, they were also disemboweled. Again, while they were still living. Daenerys was known as Mysha at this point. Mysha means mother. Daenerys considers her newly freed people to be her children. With the execution of these 163 children, Meereen is taunting her. Turn back, mother, Mysha, mother of dragons. Turn back or we will continue to kill your children. But Daenerys, she does not back down. She marches forward. She takes the city of Meereen and she gathers all the masters in a great plaza for their punishment. They ask her, how many must you have to spare us? And Daenerys answers, 163. She executes these masters the same way the children were executed. Nailed to post in the plaza, disemboweled, and left to die. In the heat of the moment, Daenerys feels like an avenging dragon, but later, as she reflects on her decision, she feels uncertain. She feels a bit unsettled. She has to convince herself it was just. She did it for the children. But was that justice, or was that vengeance? And I wonder, for some of you out there, do you even care about the difference? Because when it comes to this topic, when it comes to the deaths of the 163 slave masters, the idea seems to be they were slavers, they deserved to die. But Daenerys did not execute them for being slavers. She executed them for the very specific crime of killing these 163 children. There is a huge difference between the two. It's very similar to, did Robb go to war to dethrone Joffrey, the bastard king? Or did Robb go to war to avenge his father and rescue his sisters? One is a noble and just cause, the other a selfish ambition. Daenerys killed the slavers because she thought they were guilty of killing these children. This was vengeance, not justice. One of the many important themes in this series is vengeance versus justice. When Jon executes Janos Slynt, it's not because Janos had a part to play in Ned's downfall. It's because Janos Slynt in that moment was being insubordinate, and the punishment for insubordination at the wall is death. It's very satisfying to us as readers that Janos Slynt finally gets his comeuppance. But it's not because he killed Ned Stark. It's because he was being insubordinate. Jon could have been an avenging dragon. He could have impaled Janos Slynt in front of Castle Black as a warning to his enemies, as a warning to other people thinking of being insubordinate. The sigil of House Slynt is a bloody spear. Jon could have said, "Your sigil is a bloody spear? I'm gonna spear your ass." But Jon did not do that. Jon did not make Janos' ending excruciating or prolonged his death. He chopped off his head, and that was that. That was justice. Daenerys does not know if the 163 slavers she executed were guilty of killing those children. I've seen it said there should have been an investigation. Dany should have held a trial. Me, I would have settled for Dany asking the basic question. Who killed the children? Who was responsible? Because there was someone or someones that gave the order, and there were those that carried out the order. The slave masters weren't the ones that nailed the children to the post and disemboweled them. No, they had someone do that for them. Was it other enslaved individuals? Was it sellswords? Was it soldiers from the city? Who carried out the order? Daenerys does not ask the basic of questions. There is no inquiry. It's just the fire in her belly, the rage she has at the execution of these children. These were enslaved children. Who claimed ownership of these children? In fact, can we trace them back to their parents? Were their parents in the city of Meereen? Daenerys does not know because Daenerys did not ask. You have to wonder, did Daenerys care? This seems less about justice for the children and more about Dany and her pride, getting back at her enemies for doing something that highly upset her. Getting the person or persons responsible for the deaths of these children is true justice. Let's go back to Book 2 when Tyrion Lannister first comes to King's Landing to serve as Hand of the King in his father's stead. One of the first issues Tyrion has to deal with is the death of one of Robert's bastards and her mother, ordered by Cersei Lannister. Cersei ordered the deaths of two of Robert's bastards, a girl named Barra and Gendry. Gendry managed to escape King's Landing before the Gold Cloaks could get to him. His half-sister Barra was not so lucky. Barra was, a couple of weeks old when Janos Slynt and a man called Allardyme, a member of the Gold Cloaks, went to the establishment where Barra's mother worked. Barra's mother was very, very young. She was a sex worker at Chataya's brothel. Janos Slynt and Allardyme went to Chataya's brothel to kill the infant, and they had to kill the mother because she fought and defended her baby. When Tyrion finds out about this, he has Janos Slynt sent to the Wall along with Allardyne. However, Tyrion makes it known he does not want Allardyne to survive the journey. He wants Allar thrown overboard to drown. But even after all of that, Tyrion does not believe that justice, true justice, has been delivered because he got the people who carried out the order, but he did not get the person who gave the order. Cersei Lannister, his sister, the Queen Regent, is the person responsible. She was the one that put the hit out on an infant, on a child. 2 children to be exact. But Tyrion, he knows he cannot touch her, and so justice has not been delivered. This is why the Martells are not content just to have the people who killed Elia and her children. It's not enough to punish Gregor Clegane and Amory Lorch. They want the person that gave the order. They want Tywin Lannister. That would be true justice, complete justice. And again, we're talking about the deaths of children. Daenerys demonstrates a poor concept of justice. For her, it's an eye for an eye. Daenerys might have punished 163 masters, but we do not know if she got the person or persons responsible for the deaths of those children. If one or more people were responsible and they weren't among the 163, then they got away with murder. And I can hear it now. I've heard it many times before. The piss poor defense of, but they're slavers. They deserve to die. The only good slaver is a dead one. If Daenerys rolled into Meereen and executed the masters for the crime of slavery, that would be something different. But that's not what happened. Dany executed the 163 for the crime of killing 163 enslaved children. But were they guilty of killing these children? We do not know because Daenerys never asked. Now, would Daenerys have gotten an honest answer if she did ask these slavers if there was a trial? I highly doubt it. But the lack of an inquiry is very concerning because how Daenerys treats her enemies now in Essos is how she will treat her enemies when she comes to Westeros. This is why I don't support the Daenerys doctrine of go, Dany, go, burn, kill, destroy. They're your enemies. They deserve to die. Send them to hell. Because if, as a queen now, she has a poor concept of justice, if she doesn't know how to punish people correctly, that is very concerning, very troubling for the future of her rule. And it seems many people who defend Daenerys are content with the idea that she will get better. This is just Essos. It won't be the same in Westeros. Essos is not a sandbox for Daenerys to train in. Meereen is not a tutorial on how to be a monarch. We have to get out of the mindset. We have to get ourselves out of this chokehold of Daenerys will be better in the future. The ideal Daenerys is in Westeros. Just you wait. Daenerys is queen now. This is not a practice run. This is the real thing. Lives are at stake. And to say, but they're slavers. Are you a slave apologist? It's a weak defense. And yes, it's a very real thing that Daenerys defenders will call real people slave apologists, slave defenders for criticizing Daenerys and her campaign in Slaver's Bay. But criticizing Daenerys and her rule is not support of slavery. What Daenerys did was not justice. The text makes that very clear. That's why afterward, when Daenerys thinks about what she's done, she's very unsettled by her actions. She's almost disturbed. She has to lie to herself and tell her she did it for the children. What she did was just. She tells herself harsh justice is still justice, but she knows deep down she was wrong. Now, some of you might be thinking you don't care how slavers are treated. If they suffer a miscarriage of justice, who cares? They're slavers. The only good slaver is a dead one. But understand this. The slavers are Dany's enemies. How she treats her enemies now will be how she treats them in Westeros. If you're comfortable with how she treats her enemies now, if you're fine with her not delivering true justice in Essos, don't be surprised when it happens in Westeros. She's not going to magically become a new person when she crosses the narrow sea. You encouraged her, you cheered her to burn, kill, and destroy her enemies with no nuance. With no thought, just burn, kill, destroy, go, Dany, go. These are bad people, kill the bad people, right? Do not at all be surprised when it happens in Westeros, and more innocent people die. And some of you'll seize on that. You'll say, what do you mean innocent? They're slavers. They aren't innocent. You'll ridicule me for calling them people, but the slavers, despite their loathsome practices, they are people. The goal here is not to dehumanize the enemy. That's the pitfall Martin wants us to fall into. To adopt the callously cruel mindset of, but they're slavers. It doesn't matter what happens to them. It's okay if Dany mutilates them, burns them alive, what have you. It's the slavers that dehumanize. They mutilate little boys by the thousands. They train little girls in the art of pleasuring old men. They treat men like beasts and pin them up in cages. They skin people alive. They use people as target practice. It's very doubtful in this series that's very much anti-war that Martin doesn't want us to think how a character treats their enemies, regardless of how vile their enemies are. And one of you might quote that passage from Fever Dream, and I'm pretty sure most of you haven't actually read it. You just saw someone do it on Twitter. The whole quote about slavery ending in fire and blood. Have you actually read the book though? Because I can show you my paperback copy and my digital copy. How about it? You don't know the context, you're just repeating something you heard someone else say in defense of Daenerys, which is what many of you do. You don't use your own brains. This harkens back to Arya and how she thinks about the Lannisters. If the Starks are against the Lannisters, then she should kill all Lannisters, right? And I feel I must needs repeat myself for all the lackwits out there. This is not in defense of slavery. This is in criticism of Dany's choices. This is criticism of how she rules. If you're content with her killing her enemies in the worst ways possible, congratulations on your butcher queen. I'd rather a monarch that delivered true justice. And remember, in Dance, we're told some of the nobles of Meereen flee for their hillside estates when the city becomes too tumultuous. Let me use a quote because I know some of you out there, you don't like it when people talk about Daenerys without using quotes. You think people are making things up. You think they're lying. So, quote, Daenerys was sick unto death of Zack and Marek. She was sick of all the Meereenese, great and small alike. Let them go, but see that they take no more than the clothes upon their backs. Make certain that all their gold remains here with us, their stores of food as well. Magnificence, murmured Resnek Mo Resnek. We cannot know these great nobles mean to join your enemies. More like they are simply making for their estates in the hills. They will not mind us keeping their gold safe then. There is nothing to buy in the hills. End quote. So if Dany did not get the person or persons responsible, it could very well be they fled for the hills, far out of reach of true justice. Now, isn't that a comfort to the victims and their surviving families? And that is the 163 for Dummies, because some of you out there, you're not smart, you don't get it, and what's worse is you don't want to. It's just burn, kill, destroy, go, Dany, go. And you know what? All you people out there encouraging Dany to go, kill, destroy all your enemies, you're going to get exactly what you wanted. I hope you enjoy it, because honey, you got a big Stormborn coming. And I hope the rest of you enjoyed this video. We will have more discussions like this in the future, and don't worry, the character deep dives and theory videos, those are always in the works. More to come. Patreon support and channel memberships start at just $1. Do me a kindness and leave a like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Also, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of the video. And let me know what other topics you want me to discuss. I thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.